Hi everyone, welcome to the Awaken Your Truth Conversations. My name is Denise Simone with DeniseSimone.com, and today I'm back with EFT practitioner and life coach Tristan Montoya. Hi Tristan.
Hi Denise, how are you? Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, I'm really excited to connect today. We can start with talking about your work as an EFT practitioner and the benefits of that work, because I personally have had a session with you
Yeah,
and it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. What I really loved about it was that in the spiritual world, it could be really confusing, and sometimes um, I feel like sometimes we could have a misunderstanding about the idea of our thoughts and our emotions. Because there's a teaching out there about being the observer of them, and
yeah,
I think, and being the detaching ourselves from them, which we're going to get into later.
sure.
But I feel like if it stops there, then we can get really kind of stuck in a spin cycle. So what I really like about EFT is that it it brings you deep into them. So you're
Yes,
diving into them rather than kind of being a bystander of them. Does that make
yes.
sense?
It does, it does. We're not, with EFT, we're not avoiding
Mm-hmm.
looking at the things that are causing us pain. We're openly admitting them so as to clear them. Because if we're not facing the thing that's causing us agony, then it just goes deeper into our unconscious. So, as Carl Jung always said, enlightenment is not imagining figures of light, it's making the darkness conscious. We're bringing it up, we're looking at it so we can heal it.
Yes. And it really helped me with my perspective around my work because I don't know if I went into detail with you about it, but I had a lot of shame and a lot of um, hesitation around the work that I do because of very old stories. You know, that old who am I story, right? Who am I to deliver this kind of work to people? And who am I to, or, the not enoughness story,
Yeah,
not being enough. So I'm very grateful to you for that, for opening my
abs-
eyes to that.
absolutely.
It was
My
really
pleasure.
powerful.
So how are you showing up now in your business, in your role as an awareness educator?
It's interesting. It's more than just showing up for me. It's a feeling. I've come to a place of such peace
Mm,
with this this work. And it does connect to how I'm showing up, but I think the real powerful thing is that I've been able to release that sense of shame and
mm,
develop a sense of being really okay, because I used to fight it and I used to get very angry at it for that call that we all have when we reach this place of wanting to share and wanting to serve. And for me it was such anger because my ego did not want to go there.
yeah.
And I think the real shift was me coming to this sense of real acceptance and real peace around, I don't have to like it. But this is what I'm meant to do. And that in itself was was beautiful.
Yeah.
And out of that, the writing comes more freely. The coaching comes more freely. Um I feel like I'm just more connected, and instead of trying so hard, I allow
Yes.
much more easily.
Awesome. Yeah, you said two really big words, allow and accept. And those are huge in the
Mhm.
spiritual game because we spend so much time in resistance and it almost becomes natural. Even though it's the most unnatural thing, resistance is there and we have to acknowledge that it's there. And I think I always like to say that it's an emotional resistance because resistance itself is just a concept. It's like a mental concept. And if I give you a mental concept, maybe you struggle with it with the mental concept. You struggle with your mind to understand it. But what I like to teach people is that there's an emotion that we're bumping up against and it doesn't feel safe to let that emotion in. And so it's like we have this layer around our hearts, and it's keeping our hearts from really opening up and feeling and allowing us to feel ourselves. And that layer of pain, which we talked about previously, right before we started our call, some people call it the body of pain, the pain body. In Sanskrit, they call it the samkara. Samkara is a word that means stored energy patterns, and these stored energy patterns can become very painful, and they can feel when we bump up against them. It's like a sensitivity. It's like if you had a wound on the outside of your skin, and I started touching that wound, and that would instantly cause you to react, right? And it's the same with these emotional wounds. We move away from them because when we bump up against them, and that usually means growth. That's signaling growth in our lives. That means there's some new challenge that we're meeting. We back down from it. We don't want
But
to feel it.
but we are, if you're not aware of that, that it's a signal of growth, then it's very natural to pull away and think something's wrong, right?
Sure, sure, and
And
that's
that's
very true.
and that's where I think it's really helpful for people to know that your emotions are your guidance system.
Yes,
So
they are.
there's nothing wrong when you're feeling something come up in you that
Right.
doesn't feel comfortable. It's actually an amazing experience that you're being gifted with something to really take a dive into.
Yes. Yes. So the question is how can we get people to understand that there's nothing wrong with them just because they're experiencing this emotional pain? One of the things I'll share a little bit about the retreat I went on. I did a 10-day Vipassana retreat, and it's actually pronounced Vipassana. It's a double S, but it sounds like an SH. It's an ancient Indian tradition where that was actually started by the Buddha. The Buddha developed a system of meditation that allows for the purification of mind and body. It's almost like an energy clearing that you use your own mind to clear your own energetic body. One of the things that I learned in this practice is the idea of impermanence, and that's an idea, a concept that I knew about before, but I'd never really understood it and had an experience of it. And of course, in this tradition, they always say that they have something called panya. Panya is a Sanskrit word, a Hindi word, and it actually means wisdom. But wisdom has two parts, right? It has the understanding and it has the experience, and you have to have both.
Mm.
And when I got the experience of impermanence through meditation, I realized that everything is just transitory. It's fleeting. It comes, it goes. It's not there forever. Emotions, they're not there forever. They come and they go. They pass, just like our lives. Everything in our lives is impermanent, and the Buddhist idea is that suffering comes from attachment, right? It's our
Mm.
attachment to something impermanent that we want to hold on to so desperately. It creates agony in our minds, whether that's a relationship, a job, a piece of furniture, a treasured family heirloom, whatever it is. We develop an attachment to things, and it causes us agony. So it's really this process of mental purification is really just it's a letting go. It's a constant letting go of the things that we're internally grasping onto that are causing us pain. And when we realize that the agony is produced by our own thoughts, and that the thoughts create this stored energy known as the body of pain or the samskara, basically that's what we become aware of. And once you experience all that falling away, and creating space inside of you, then you have more power to be who you are, to show up in the world, to serve your clients, your customers, whoever it is, whatever it is you're doing in the world. You can bring the full version of yourself, not the restrained version of yourself that's protecting a part of you, not knowing that this pain, as we'll call it, is opening you up to your power.
Yes. Yes, because that pain restricts us from showing up fully. It's like we have this armor suit on,
Yes.
right? And we're just really trying to protect ourselves, and all our defenses come up. And
Yes.
when we let go and release the stories and the pain and the limited ways of thinking, it like you said, it's just a liberating sense of presence,
Yes.
and clarity just comes through.
It does. Because it was always there. I call
Mm-hmm.
it knowing. It's a
Mm-hmm.
knowingness. And it's there's a universal knowingness that we all are connected to. In essence, it's who we are. What we do is through the process of social programming, socialization, all of these things start to happen throughout our lifetimes, and they shape who we are.
Mm.
We forget the knowingness. We forget our connection to ourselves, and through our own connection to ourselves, opens up a connection to the whole universe. And through our conditioning, we forget that. The process of awakening is a shift in perception, and that shift in perception is just restoring our sense of self, our sense of connectedness, our sense of oneness with everything. It's a beautiful process, but it means that there's a breaking down of the egoic structure in order to feel that knowingness again and go home, as I like to call it. We're returning home. We never left, but we think we did. And our mind goes on this journey into the outer world, and it gains all these experiences and tries to make sense of everything. But the real journey begins in the interior world, in the inner world. The real journey is from the head to the heart. And it's the opening of the heart that restores our knowingness, our sense of well-being inside. Because really that's when we feel best, is when we're connected to that oneness.
Yep. And you know what I really, really love and find fascinating is when you connect back to yourself and you see yourself for who you really are rather than living in your stories, quote unquote. But I think your stories are also very helpful. So I never
Yeah.
want to put those in the bad category because I think stories are all part of the process of helping us awaken. But when we can step out of them and be grateful that we had them, we get to see other people's stories as they're living in them.
Yes.
And we can appreciate that they're not bad people, wrong people, and the judgments drop towards everyone else. And we get to see, we have a different perception, not towards only towards ourselves, but to the world around us, and we get to see everybody as there there is no wrong. People
Yeah.
are only living out of their awareness
Yes. It's true.
that they're currently functioning from. So there is no reason to ever judge
No.
because when you awaken from your stuff, you see that others are in the process of doing that for themselves as well.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so I want to take you into your experience, not your personal experience, but what you learned on your retreat. Can you share that story that you shared with me before the call? Because I
Absolutely.
think that's really parallel to what I'm saying.
Yes, it is. And just to continue on what you were saying, the you made a good point, and the point is that we really can't judge anyone. And as I had mentioned to you before we started our call, when we judge another, we judge ourselves. When I harm another, I harm myself.
Hmm.
There's no action in the universe that I can take if I'm not serving, if my intentions aren't for the greater good, then I go back into my egoic pattern. If my words are helping and healing and comforting others, then that creates more good in my life. If my words are harming and hurting and damaging others, then that comes back into my life. It's the concept of karma, and we're either dissolving our karma or creating more karma. And that's really what I learned during my meditation. I kept as I was going through my 10 days. Uh, One of the things that kept coming up in my experience was there was a quote I had read. You know how I love quotes. I'm always, I memorize them, I recite them, I repeat them, I use them as educational tools. But when you can take it, it's not what here's a quote about a quote, and I'm going to explain. It's not what you read, it's what you think about what you read. And I love that because you can read a quote, but you may not have an understanding of it. You
Or
may
how
think,
you actually apply it to yourself.
yes,
Hmm.
exactly. And I think application comes when you've really taken that quote and digested it, made it a part of yourself, integrated it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd had this quote in my mind for a long time. I'd read the book A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle a long time ago, and there was a quote that always stood out in my mind because I noticed the theme through a lot of the teachers I was reading, and the theme was compassion. And I really loved this word compassion, and I really tried to embody a compassion in my life. So what I started noticing was that as I started awakening, and I became more conscious, let's say, my spiritual ego came into being, and all of a sudden I said, well, I'm spiritual and you're not, and I'm studying these things and you're not. So, and it almost gave me this sense of spiritual superiority, and that's just another form of ego.
Mm-hmm.
So Eckhart Tolle likes to say that compassion arises when you realize that all are suffering from the same sickness of the mind. So I like to tell people that quote. I used to without fully understanding what the sickness of the mind is. I knew it was ego, but let me explain what that is. Everyone has the same pattern. When we were in one of the precepts of going into a Vipassana meditation is that you understand three precepts. You understand that suffering comes from craving, aversion, and ignorance. Okay? So the mind is constantly doing one of those three things. It's choosing to remain ignorant because, hey, if there's too much information, too many new things, it gets confused. The ego loses its sense of identity. Craving is a form of suffering. It's wanting something that we don't have, which causes suffering, or it's trying to cling to something we already do have that we can't let go of. Aversion is that idea of avoiding pain. It's really just, if a situation causes us pain, we're going to try to avoid it. And so the ego tries to stay in this realm of comfort. But the irony is that it makes us agonize. So the ego, in essence, is insanity. It's actually an insane thought system. That's how the Course in Miracles describes it. The ego operates from an insane thought system. So when you understand that everyone suffers from this sickness of ego because the ego is operating from an insane thought system, it's not based in truth. So if people operate from a thought system that's not based in truth and it's actually based in fear, then what kind of world would that create? You only have to look around you. You only have to watch the news and look at what people are doing to one another. Is that coming from truth, or is that coming from an insane thought system?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So I think what happens in a vipassana is you spend so much time in your inner world. You begin to look at all of your actions, and you begin to really feel the impact that you have had, that I have had on the world, on those around me, and how cleaning up my mental projections, cleaning up my mental defilements, as they call them. He uses that, the teacher, his name's S.N. Goenka. He's an Indian man that passed away. But he did this course all through. It's been recorded and it's been passed down over the last 20 some years. He keeps using the words mental defilements and impurities of the mind. So basically, we're cleaning up all the impurities of the mind because nobody can take an action in the world that harms others without having several collective thoughts that contributed to that action. So if a murderer doesn't just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to go out and kill somebody. They've been harboring those thoughts of ill will, resentment, hate, anger. All of those thoughts have been building up inside of them for quite some time. And then the moment occurs that they can actually take action on their. So now they've created a thought system that's based in all of these lower emotions. And then the opportunity arises where they can carry out what those thoughts they've been harboring, and they take the action. So our work then is to clean up all these defilements of the mind, all these thoughts of hatred, shame, blame, resentment, anger, sadness. It's a system of thoughts that brings us down, and it keeps us in a pattern of lower emotions, and it affects our energy. So our energy needs to be at a level of love. And
Mm-hmm.
how can it be when we're bogged down by these lower emotions, right?
Yes. Yes. So share that story, if you can, about the story you told me about from your retreat. about how all the prisoners were healed.
Yes, there's a really good so this teacher that I mentioned, his Goenka, he goes by Goenka.
Hmm.
Goenka is one of the he's the best known Vipassana teacher. He actually learned the form. He resurrected this age old tradition of Vipassana meditation that was as taught by the Buddha himself. Goenka learned this form, and he had started practice. He was born in Burma, but he was from India. He was of Indian origin, but he was born in Burma. He had to get a visa to actually return to his home country and live there and work there. So he was invited back to India to begin teaching Vipassana courses. He had initially he was extremely popular. He said even though he was from India, having lived his whole life in Burma, he'd mentioned that he only had about 100 known contacts in India, and he said, "Well, I give a few courses and I'm done. Where are these people going to come from?" But people came from far and wide to learn Vipassana, and it wasn't long before they were asking him to do Vipassana in institutions like prisons. So a prison system came to him and they said, "Would you consider doing this course in a prison?" And he said, "Well, I run this course with a very specific set of rules. It's Vipassana is to be administered this way for very practical purposes, for the growth of every individual attending. This is how it's going to be." And the warden agreed to everything. Of course, we'll create a space in the prison away from the other prisoners. We'll give them their own time to their own dwellings in this part of the prison. They don't have to return to their cells during those 10 days. They made it very effective, and they adhered to all the rules and guidelines of the Vipassana meditation. The warden had been looking for a way to get these prisoners to feel remorse for what they had done. And in all of these prisoners, they had been incarcerated for some time, and the thoughts in their mind was, the world did this to me. The world caused me to be a criminal. The rich did this to us because we had to rob from them. We had to. It was all a pattern in their minds that was basically blaming the outside world for their position in life. So the warden didn't understand. She didn't know how she would rectify this problem. So she brought in the Vipassana meditators to offer their course. And amazingly, all the prisoners that went through the course had phenomenal results. And they took some of the most gross offenders in the entire prison. I mean, we're talking about multiple homicide, capital murder type inmates, people that had done a lot of bad things. And they had a guard with a rifle that was given instructions to shoot down anyone that got up from their meditation pillow, because these were violent offenders. So with that said, everyone went through the 10-day course, and the results were that men were basically crying like babies after the 10 days, and they were hugging their jailers. They were sobbing on the shoulders of the jailers, and the jailers were letting them. This was the only time that contact was permitted between the inmates and the jailers, and they were sobbing like children. And what they had come to the realization of was that through their actions they had caused so much destruction in the world and in the lives of others. They felt genuine remorse through the process of self-observation. No one made them look at the things they'd done in the past. But when you spend 10 days in this process of self-observation, you become incredibly insightful, and you view your actions out in the world, and you see the impact you've had, and you feel it in your being, and you realize that I have to alter the way who I'm being in the world. This has to change. And you feel a genuine sense of remorse and an overwhelming feeling to want to rectify this.
And I think
And
it's really important, I'm just going to put this in there, to point out is there's a lot of people out there that try to make people see what they do. I think this is a really important distinction. Whether it's a teacher in the classroom or a parent trying to point to their child, look at what you've done. It's not effective if you are coming from a judgmental energy.
that's right.
So this is more than just asking somebody to look at what they've done. It's giving them the space to do it in a way where they're not being wronged for what they
Right.
did. It's a big difference. Because
Yes, it
you
is.
can tell somebody till they're blue in the face, you've done this wrong, take a look at what you've done, and that person will do it more.
Yeah. There you
You
go.
know, this is giving people the respect and honor, and it's just coming from a pure place of we're not judging, we're allowing you to be with yourself in a very loving way. Does that make sense?
It
That's
makes, it
that's
makes
why, to
total
me,
sense.
that's why it's so effective,
Yes.
because it's the energy that's being put into it. It's not even about the process.
This has nothing to do with what you just shared, but it kind of, a lot of people get DUIs, right? And they get arrested for drinking and driving, and they get sent to these court mandated DUI classes. Many of them go out and drink and drive again. You know, it's almost like the court mandated that you attend these classes because you're wrong and you need to learn and you need to learn your lesson, and then you won't do it again because we'll scare the hell out of you. And then they go and they do the same thing again. Did they honestly repent? I doubt it. You know, it's you know it's an interesting predicament that we have trying to right all the wrongs in the world. But you're right. If we come from the point that if we come from the standpoint that you're wrong and I know what's best, and if you just do what I think is best, you'll be okay, and no more problems will be created. But of course, that comes from a judgmental place. It comes from a righteous position, and righteousness never teaches. We only teach by example. We can be the example in the world, and others can say, "I want that. I want what you have. I love what you're doing. Something about the way you're living just inspires me. I want to be more like that." But if you tell me you have to be like this because this is what it's going to do for you, and then what you're doing now just isn't working, and look at the harm you're causing, I'm going to put up the hand and I'm going to say, just stop where you are. I
Mm-hmm.
can't hear you when you
Mm-hmm.
speak to me like that. And a lot of people get like that. They get very defensive because a righteous position creates a defensive position. And all of a sudden you have two egos battling it out, trying to defend their positions, trying to say, no, I'm right. No, I'm right. Why don't you see it my way? No, why don't you see it my way? And it doesn't work. It doesn't, it's not a respectful way to approach another person because you're not honoring that they have the same inherent wisdom that each of us has, right? That knowingness. We all have the
Right.
connection to knowingness. We just need to be reminded of it, not coaxed into it.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. So, is there anything else you want to share about your retreat? You shared a lot, but is there any last tidbits from your experience?
What I became very aware of is the impermanent nature of all life and how we all come and go and how these lives we live are so temporary. But that helped me once I had the emotion began to surface, and once I just faced it, looked at it, saw its gift, and let that gift just open up, I started to feel the importance of these relationships and how important people are in our lives and how we need to keep them close to us. If they mean something to you, keep them close. If they're in your life and you just say you love them, then show that you love them. You show them through your actions, through your kindness, through your good deeds, through your generous support, through willingness to help. Whatever it is, I really felt this urging in myself to move forward and embrace life, all of life, and all of the people in my life, because we're really here for a short time. And I think when you spend 10 days in meditation, you see your life as not, sometimes it's hard to think from where I am now to 85 years old. But you know what? It's going to go like that. And in this time we have to make peace with it, and we have to make peace with the people in it, and we
Yeah,
have to do our best to begin to create harmony in the world.
absolutely. I want to challenge you that on that just a little bit.
Yeah.
So, when we're on this path, and what you just said, I completely agree with because I've had that same experience where um, I've grown to appreciate the people in my life, but in so many different ways.
Mm.
In ways where if I felt I was resisting them, I would I would back up a little bit and kind of do a little investigating of why I was resisting, find the gift, understand, and I would either be more drawn to them because I was appreciating more, and other times I felt the opposite, where although I appreciated what gifts were given, I felt that it was my time to pull away.
Mm.
So I just want to give you a little chance to talk on that, on what you feel about that. Do you feel that sometimes in situations, because we're awakening into this new space, this new energy, that not all relationships are meant to, is that true for you, is my question?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I found it true for me, where I have felt the push-pull of guilt. Maybe I shouldn't feel that way, but awakening doesn't always mean that you're embracing everything. Sometimes it means you just have to pull away because it's for your highest good.
Yes. I agree. I agree. And I want to. You're right. And that's a great way of looking at it. And here's the thing. When we have open hearts, of course, our natural reaction is to want to just love all beings everywhere. But if we're really offering genuine love, then our love is almost it's almost focused. We have an opportunity. It's our choice to focus our love and really
Yes.
put
And
that love on the beings in our life that really matter.
and it
And
doesn't
it's
mean we're not loving the
no,
person. We're
it's
actually
not
loving them more because we're giving them the opportunity to learn.
absolutely. So I had this experience actually. I came back, and a friend of mine once told me, and I don't know if you ever heard this quote, but I'll say it for the benefit of anyone that listens. He told me once that friends come into our life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and you have to decide, you have to figure out what kind of friend am I to you, and I have to decide the same thing. And I thought about that for a long time. Friends come into our life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Sometimes that reason they come into our life is to affect change, is to offer us a gift, it's to help us through a transitory phase. And I came back. It's interesting, and I'll tell this story. I came back. I made a very good friend here in California. We met. Actually, we're both practitioners of Tai Chi. We were on the beach practicing our Tai Chi, doing this deep spiritual practice. And he approached me, and we became fast friends. And when I got back, we started to um, disagree on a subject, and I noticed his anger started coming up, and I was in a place where I could just observe it and not react because I'd spent 10 days discovering how reactive I had been and how that just creates more of the same. And and once I had healed that pain inside of myself, I knew I didn't have to react to what I was seeing as anger in him. But we got into a conversation, and he revealed in a very matter of fact kind of way that I'm just a temporary friend for you. I'm not a permanent friend. And I was a little taken aback because I think I had an emotional attachment, an investment, so to speak, in this person as a lifetime friend. But that situation, the fact that he told me his truth, helped me see that this wasn't a lifetime friendship. He had come into my life for a reason. And I have to
Interesting.
be okay with that, or else I suffer. If I want something more, no, but I wanted this to last forever. We were going to be BFFs. Like, if I have some attachment to that, right, then I just suffer. And
And
I
it's
create,
that's not about him at all. It's all about what
yeah,
you're experiencing, and there's your
yeah,
opportunity to learn.
yeah. And it's all about my fantasy, right?
And
If
what are
I'm
you
not,
needing from him? What are you so desperately needing from him that you're not giving yourself?
right, right.
Hmm.
And he's a little bit older than me, and I think I looked to him as a guide, as a mentor, and I felt like he was kind of taking back his friendship, like I had invested a piece of myself in this friendship, and now he's taking back his investment and saying I'm fine without you. I don't know. And at first it hurt, and then I thought, thank you for just telling me this truth. Now I don't have a delusion about what this is. I can
Yes.
accept what this is and gain what I've gotten and go on in the world and continue on in my happy-go-lucky way. It doesn't matter. I just it's our emotional investment in things and our expectation that causes suffering. Once you take that away, see things as they are, there's no more suffering.
No more suffering, and everything is very impersonal.
Yeah, yeah. And we You know, I heard a great quote yesterday from Joe Vitale, um, and he says, you know, you'll keep having the same experience until you get what you need from that experience. You know, until you get the lesson, you'll keep having similar experiences. And that's the holographic universe. That's the nature of the universe. It'll keep showing you things in your experience that you need to clean up. And that's true. That's the truth. In meditation, we're bringing our unconscious mind to the surface, and we're allowing these things to surface so that we can integrate them, so we can become whole, right? So the thing is our unconscious mind wants to be whole. It actually wants to be whole. And it will give you all the experiences in your life in order to become whole. The more you resist the experiences in your life, the more, though, if you don't resolve them when they appear to you, then they'll manifest in another way, through another person, through another situation, another event. And you can throw up your hands and say, why does this keep happening to me? But that's, of course, the victim mentality. So what do? We face the situation. We ask the question, what is this experience good for? How is it serving me? What do I need to learn? And when we stop fighting it and just say, all right, let me, what is it? What do I need to get from this experience? It passes on. We learn, we get the experience, and the experience falls away. The situation falls away. We
And
move on.
sometimes that requires taking really courageous actions to learn
Like,
the lesson. Because you can know the lesson in your head, you can know it on a mental level, but to integrate the lesson, I
yeah,
know from my experience that's been the hardest part for me. Is I
yeah,
can say, oh, here's the lesson again. Oh, here it is again, showing up. And it's just here because I'm not following through with the action that needs to be
right,
taken. So it's
yeah,
not, you don't really learn the action until you apply, I mean, learn the lesson until you apply the action. Sometimes there's an act, sometimes not, maybe it's just an awareness, but most of the time there is an action attached to that awareness that needs to be followed through. Would you
yes.
agree with that?
Yes, I do. I'll give you a very, let me give you an example of how this works. I have a lot of friends that are black in LA, and it's interesting because my spiritual teacher in LA is black. One of my first coaches was black. Um, even Michael Beckwith at Agape Spiritual Center, he's black, and so I started having even my roommate, he's half black. So I've had all these experiences of being around African Americans and black people, and you know, I've been told by a black person, don't just assume they're African American. I actually know a Haitian American, so and he's become a good friend. So the thing is, what I'm saying is that I used to harbor a lot of thoughts that were very much racist. I would think them in my mind, and whether or not I verbalized them, I was thinking racist thoughts. I
So
was thinking
interesting.
I was thinking, oh, those people, they're so and so, they're so this, and this. And okay, I was having these thoughts at the same time I was going through my training with the Ford Institute, which focuses on shadow work and integration. So what I started to notice, I took a job at a nightclub in Washington D.C., and I had some confrontations with some of the black guests that would come in, and it got, when I say confrontation, I mean actual altercations. I had to have security between me and them to prevent an assault. That's how it, you know, I was an employee of this nightclub, and I had to prevent an assault by having security between us. That wasn't a pleasant situation for me. And you can imagine if I was already harboring racist thoughts, now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these people, they're so this, and this. So what I
Well, it was
started to do,
confirming your thing. It was right. It
exactly,
was confirming what you were believing.
absolutely, absolutely. So our thoughts create our reality. So what I needed to do was undo my thinking. And I did this through a shadow work exercise. So what I did, so now I'm trained, I'm getting my training as a shadow coach, right? So I take my experience and I go home and I say, and in traditional shadow work, this is a basic technique anyone can use. Just ask yourself, what kind of person does this, right? What kind of person assaults their bartender or server? What kind what kind of person complains about their meal and tries to get a free meal? Okay, whatever the word was, whether it was cheap, ignorant, whatever the word it was, it didn't matter. I'm not saying that all black people have this quality. I'm saying that I just chose this group of people to project onto. It could have been Arab people, it could have been Jewish people. It didn't matter. The ethnic group doesn't matter. It matters to develop an awareness of how you project. So what I did is I went home and I did a simple exercise. What are these people showing me? What kind of what kind of person does this? So I started to list all the traits that I had seen in them, and then I would take. We learned a technique. It's a three-step process to integrate a shadow trait, and I started to take the shadow exercise and integrate all those traits. If I see ignorance in another, then I look at to see where I've been ignorant. If I see cheapness in another, I look at to see where I've been cheap in my own life or where I'm being cheap with myself. Once I go through the integration process, I clean it up. I clean up my projections. Then what I noticed is that when I went out into the world the next time, I had the most pleasant interactions with black people. They treated me like a friend, and they were some of the most courteous, friendly interactions that I've had, and it continues to this day. And incidentally, fast forward 2 years, I'm surrounded by black friends and spiritual teachers and all this wisdom that are coming from people that I couldn't have heard had I not cleaned up my projections. I couldn't have heard their wisdom and gained their friendship and gotten these gifts of having an expanded community if I had still been harboring these racist in thoughts of judgmental thoughts. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I love that exercise. And I want to point out that it's not just for traits that we're judging that we are, that we can't see. It's also traits that we have within us that we're not utilizing. How do I say it? So maybe it's kind of the same thing, but I remember back in the day when I would judge people that talked a lot. It used to really ruffle my feathers and get under my skin. And I had to really take a look at that. And it was just because I had a lot to say and I wasn't using my voice. So I guess all in the end, it's just about a trait that you have that you're not integrating in a healthy, balanced way. Because sometimes, because Debbie Ford talks a lot about being very, I love this example, being a bitch, right?
Yeah.
Like we'll judge people that are bitchy, but so there's negative traits, but this process that you're talking about can really help us to embrace our bitchy side.
Yes.
So then every trait becomes useful, becomes integrated in a way that sometimes we need to be a bitch, right? We need to have that self-assertiveness in us so that we can create healthy boundaries and we can, create a life that feels really good and nourishing for us. And that sometimes means bringing out the quote-unquote bitchiness in us, but in a way that's conscious,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so we can
Yeah.
pull that out when we need it. You may have seen the film The Shadow Effect, and
Yes.
she uses that example and how it actually helped her have a conversation with her contractor who was behind
Yes.
schedule on a home repair. That's a great example, but it didn't give Debbie the free reign to be a bitch in society. It takes the sting off of those words that normally would have caused us a lot of agony. If someone were to walk up and say, "You're a bitch," and if we just shudder, if we just start to tremble in our skin when someone says that to us, then we've got some work to do. But
Yes.
what she pointed out, a big part of what Debbie pointed out, and which a lot of the spiritual teachers will point out, is not only do we project the traits that are undesirable, we also project some traits that are desirable traits, and we say, oh well, I don't have what that person has.
Yep.
We see movie stars, we see celebrities, politicians, people in the limelight, and we say, well, they must have something that I don't have, and so I'm just little old me, and I'm just normal, and I'm a common person, and they're celebrities. And the thing is that if we're doing that, and in our culture we tend to, because our society glorifies, deifies almost these people. that have unique talents or skills, or just happen to be in the limelight. But the teachings of Debbie Ford and a lot of other spiritual teachers will tell you that whatever you see in others is also in you. You are the microcosm of the macrocosm. You, and contained within you is every trait, every aspect contained in the universe. So you can draw on this infinite well anytime you want. You can become whoever you are. The
Mm-hmm.
energy loss, the energy drain is projecting that on other people and saying, "Well, you have it and I don't. I'll give my energy to you." And
Yes.
we do that when we project negatively or positively. We give our energy away. We take our energy back and make ourselves whole and complete when we start to integrate these things back into ourselves and own them and really acknowledge that I am all this. I am all these traits. I am the I am. I mean, that's the ultimate spiritual teaching. I am. I am God individualized. I have all these qualities within myself. So it's a process of wholeness.
Mm.
And that's the journey.
That's the journey. It's like I said, that session I had with you was truly powerful, really powerful. It brought me to a whole new level of just, I think, a level of sitting more securely within myself. It just, and that's what this is all about, accepting all of who we are,
Yeah.
and going into those places that are really hard to often look at. You just want to kind of deny them because it feels easier to do that, but it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
So it really it
Is
just
in
it
the long
helped.
run.
What's that?
It never is in the long run. It's
No.
it's it's always best to face what we have to face in the moment.
Yeah. And it really did that for me. It helped me face some stuff that I knew on a mental, like I said, a mental level. Like, I know this already. And that's the worst thing you can say to yourself is, I already know that.
Yeah.
When you say, I already know that, then you know that there's something you need to look at,
Yeah.
because no, we don't ever know everything. And there's always more doors to open, and to um, just sit more and more deeply into self acceptance is just a really powerful thing. I know from my journey anyway, of just accepting all that's being called within me. And, you can either be afraid of that, or you could say, all right, let's go.
Yeah. Because truth is a beautiful thing, and each one of us is we're waking down. I don't know if you ever heard that expression before.
I've never heard that.
There's a movement actually called Waking Down. I think it's like wakingdown.org, but I'm not referring to the movement. I'm just referring to the term. A lot of people say we're waking up, and waking down is more like we're dissolving all the layers of untruth so that we can get to the truth. We can get the truth is the core of who we are. That's where all this knowingness and all this connection comes from. And so we're really just dissolving all the layers, all the egoic layers, the mental constructs, the patterns, the programming, all of these things that keep us from being and feeling the truth. That's what we're doing. So we're essentially waking down instead of waking up. It's a continual growth process, and that's a good thing. I think we can all be glad for that because it keeps us on our toes. It keeps us learning and growing because if we're not growing, then
We're dying.
we're dying.
Yeah. And I was listening. I don't know if you know Matt Kahn.
I do.
He's a spiritual teacher,
Yeah.
and he talks a lot about the love revolution. And I love what you just said about it's never done. But he says that he's here to bring us out of being the student and into the master. His mission is to dissolve the student so that we are all masters. And what a master is in every moment bringing forth love.
Yes.
So you're never done, but when you step into the role of the master, now you're just projecting love no matter what is being presented to you.
Yeah.
And even that is growth, because you have to be aware in every moment of,
Every
am
moment.
I restricting, or am I opening up and being
Yes.
of service in the most loving way that I can?
Yes. It's a great distinction. That really is. That seems to be the theme right now is that we're all to step up as and claim our mastery. And you know, all through all the teachings that I've been fortunate enough to learn from and hear in the past several years has been that we master when we master our emotions, we master ourselves. And emotions are what cause us to be reactive. And as long as we're reactive, we're creating more karma and more material that sticks to our body of pain, that creates that samskara, right? It creates that layer that we then have to work through again. So we have to dissolve this cycle of thoughts creating new energy patterns. We have to clear ourselves of that layer that keeps us from knowing and experiencing the truth.
Yes.
At that level of mastery is emotional mastery. It's mental mastery. It's mastery over the mind. So, on that note, I highly recommend Vipassana for anyone wanting to master the mind and clear their emotions.
Can you just show up the CD that did
Yeah,
was that
absolutely, absolutely. This is the DVD offered by the course. It's the teacher is S.N. Goenka. The technique is called Vipassana meditation. And you can go to dhamma.org. Dhamma is spelled Dhamma.org. Dhamma.org, and it'll tell you all the locations around the planet for a 10-day Vipassana retreat. They are by donation only, so there's no fee. You pay what you can. You are provided with food and lodging. There's no excuse. You can even organize a ride for most big, they set up a ride share program. If you were penniless, you could show up to this retreat, be fed and housed for 10 days, and the only thing you have to do is come with an open mind and be willing to do the work, because it is work.
mm-hmm.
So that is, I believe it will take a lot of, if anyone has an aversion to spiritual work, well, this will help dissolve that aversion to work, because you do have to apply yourself, but the results are phenomenal. The rewards are infinite. And the insights you get will last a lifetime, and they'll affect all of your relationships, your business, your own relationship with yourself, and how you view the world. And that's just a beautiful thing. So. And
Beautiful
I'm so
thing.
happy to hear that you've had this experience with EFT, because that's the point of the work. These two techniques work hand in hand. EFT helps dissolve the karmic layers. It helps dissolve the body of pain. It helps dissolve the pattern of thinking that's not serving you anymore and just creating more of the same. So it's really just, it's a pulling away of all of the things that are in the way of having your sense of clarity, knowingness, intuitiveness. It's restoring all that. So I'm glad you went
Absolutely.
through it.
It was awesome.
Cool.
So we're going to wrap this up, but before
Yeah.
we end, can you just share your website and how somebody can work with you if they feel called to?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. My website is spiritualsuccess.co, and you can work with me by the best thing to do is set up an initial consultation with me. I will offer anybody who genuinely wants to explore this work a 2-hour consultation. On that call, we'll explore your vision for your life, all the things that are in the way of you achieving that kind of life. We're going to look at your limiting beliefs, your blocks. I'm going to give you an experience of emotional clearing and energy clearing, and we're going to create a shift in your life and create some distinctions that can shake you up and get you out of these patterns that you're in and into a more healthy, productive pattern that works for you in your life. That's the kind of after this consultation, I work with people on a 12-week basis. I feel that change happens over time. It's not something it's not an instantaneous thing. Yes, you can experience great results after a session, but I like to work with people over 12 weeks and work with them through distinctions and a coaching program that I've created that help integrate all of these techniques, all these distinctions, all these lessons, and bring them into a format that not only the mind can understand, but that the soul and spirit can experience. So it's a total mind, body, spirit program. I love what I'm doing. I love the results I'm having. People are having actual spiritual awakenings while I'm working with them, and they're discovering their life purpose and they're aligning with their truth. And it's a beautiful thing. If I
That's
can
a
do that with more people in the
beautiful
world,
thing.
then I've served my purpose.
That is wonderful. Awesome. And that's a beautiful gift you're offering right now. So
Yeah.
I encourage anyone who feels, um, called to dive into this to work with Tristan, because I had a phenomenal experience. It was awesome. So thank you. Thank you for offering your time today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for setting this up. This is a great chance to reconnect, so I appreciate
Yes. Maybe there will be a part three. We'll see.
it. Nice.
All right. All right. So have a wonderful day. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, absolutely. All
Okay.
right.
Take
Bye,
care.
Denise.
Bye bye.